Salut le peuple! Welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name's Hermantha, and if you're already part of the family, then you know what to do. Today we are going to talk about Haitian Creole. We are going to learn about its history. We're going to deconstruct certain myths. I still don't know how to pronounce this word. And we're going to learn how it became an official language in Haiti. Before we start, I just want to address the elephant in the room. If it's the third time that you've been watching my videos and that you're not subscribed yet, I think it's time for you and I to take this relationship to the next level. Kill all the awkwardness, press the subscribe button, and click that bell notification icon so you never miss a new upload of mine. Let's get into it. Before we start, I just want you guys to pay attention to the song that's playing in the background. She didn't want me to do this, but I don't care. I'm gonna do it anyways. This is amazing new song by local artist, Haitian artist, JESSIE'S. Her new song, Fantasy. It's bopping. Let's let it play. I'm gonna let it play for a few seconds. Yeah, so I'm gonna put the link down below and make sure you go stream her song. It was her birthday recently, so as a present to her, as a community and people who are not part of our community, let's go listen to her music and make her numbers climb up. Okay, before we dive into the whole linguistic deep aspect of Haitian Creole, we're gonna start easily, and like any good Quebecer would say, ça mange quoi en hiver du créole, right? So what is Haitian Creole? Haitian Creole is a language spoken in Haiti, which is a small country on the island of Hispaniola, so on the western part of the island. There's approximately 10 to 12 million speakers of Haitian Creole, which makes us la nation avec le plus de créolophones au monde, which is a lot. It's said that about 10 million of those people are in Haiti, and 2 million of those speakers are spread out around the world, mainly in the United States of America, in Canada, in France, and other islands of the Caribbean such as Cuba, Dominican Republic, and the Bahamas. So things I often hear when it comes to Creole is, oh, is Haitian Creole a dialect or is it a Creole? Is Haitian Creole a real language? Stuff like Haitian Creole doesn't have its own grammar, we don't have our own syntax, it's a broken French, Haitian Creole is only a slang. That's for, let's go. We're going to talk about all of those things in today's crash course of Haitian Creole, so you leave this video learning something new and so we can put a bit of respect on our language in which we take a lot of pride in. So Haitian Creole is in fact a real language. It is not a broken French. It's a language in itself with its own orthograph, grammar, syntax, and yada yada yada. It's a language. Before we go into the hardcore stuff, we're gonna start slowly. Now we know that Haitians speak Haitian Creole. But what is a Creole? I'm going to teach you 4 different terms and I hope that it's going to help you understand the rest easier. Let's start with the first term, a dialect. If you already watched my video on how to learn a new language in a year, then you should know what it is. A dialect is simply a variety of a said language. You have Arabic, which is that one language, and you are going to have different varieties such as Moroccan Arabic, Lebanese Arabic, Tunisian Arabic, Egyptian Arabic. Those are all dialects of one language, Arabic. Now you have number 2, a lingua franca. A lingua franca is a language that's going to be used by speakers of different linguistic communities in order to communicate amongst themselves. That language, however, is already going to be an existing language, but it's not going to be any of their native tongues. If I remember correctly, in school I learned that in Ivory Coast the lingua franca is going to be French, but a lot of people who go there for trading are not native French speakers. Pigeon. No, I don't mean the bird pigeon, but pigeon. What is a pigeon? A pigeon is like a lingua franca, but the difference is that the language they're going to use to talk to each other isn't going to be an existing language. It's often going to be a mixture of 2 or more language. The thing about pigeons is that They also arise in situations of trading, but they often arise from slavery as well. So you're gonna have the colonizer that speaks a set language, now for example English, and you're gonna have several different enslaved people who do not speak the same language. What is gonna happen is that they're often going to mix their language with the colonizer's language in order to communicate, and that language is going to be a pidgin. Now, it's important to note that there are no native speakers of a pidgin. Pidgins often arise when there's a quick need of communication. It's just a language over the time they pick up really fast so they can communicate with each other. Some people still carry on the pidgin in their daily lives, and once that happens and they give birth to their children who now have that pidgin as a native tongue, it becomes a Creole. I hope that wasn't too complicated for you. So basically, a pidgin is a language that is made up for communication, and once someone becomes a native speaker of a pidgin, it now becomes a Creole. Haitian Creole is a Creole because it came from a pidgin who eventually became a native tongue for some people. Okay, so now let's dive into the fun part for me, the core linguistic aspect of what is Haitian Creole. There's a reason why people think that Haitian Creole is a broken French, which it's not. Haitian Creole is a French-based Creole, and like French, the word order in Haitian Creole is SVO, and that stands for subject, verb, and object. There's all sorts of French-based Creole that also belong to that same family. Louisiana Creole, Réunion Creole, Seychellois Creole, Creole from Guadeloupe, Creole from Martinique. Those are all Creoles that belong in the French-based family of Creoles. Again, from my other video on language, you might remember that I showed you 6 different family languages. If we take Haitian Creole, where exactly would it be in those families? Haitian Creole unfortunately doesn't belong to one specific family, as it's a mixture of several languages from different families. Essentially a mixture of French, of English, of Spanish, of Portuguese, of Taino, and several West African languages. That being said, Haitian Creole would be a mixture of the Indo-European family and the Niger-Congo family. So how did Haitian Creole become an official language in Haiti in the first place? So before it was made an official language, French and Haitian Creole coexisted in this phenomenon that we like to call in the linguistic community diglossia. Diglossia is basically when there's 2 dialects or 2 languages that coexist in one society. Now in Haiti's case, it was 2 languages. There's often going to be one language that's the higher language and the other the lower language. And as you guessed it, in Haiti's case, French was the higher language and Haitian Creole was the lower language. So what does that mean? French was mostly used for things that were more formal, for example, teaching in school, literature, what you would see on the news when the president would address itself to the nation. All of those things would happen in French, and Creole was more for informal conversation. So if you were to talk to your friends, you would do it in Creole. The thing is, only a small fraction of Haiti's population was bilingual in those 2 languages, and that was the upper class. So you had the majority of the country that had Creole as a native language. Once they got to school, they would be taught in French. Teaching was not done in Haitian Creole. Why do I have to learn the colonizer's language if I don't even speak it at home? Why? Thankfully, all of that changed in 1987, where in the Constitution it was said that Haitian Creole was now one of the official languages of the Republic alongside French. There was a big push for Haitian Creole to really be the main language and to be taught in school more, but unfortunately that wasn't very successful. However, many public schools in Haiti now offer education in Haitian Creole, especially to students where their families don't speak French. So that's all for today. Like I said, today was a crash course, so I hope it was still light and insightful and you guys learned something. If you learned something, you have no choice but to subscribe right now. Stay tuned for more videos. I've been requested to make more videos on Haitian cultures, so I'm going to prepare a video on Haitian grammar. Stay tuned for that video. Once again, thank you for watching. Be safe and see you next video.